Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, back with another video. So, let's talk about the fight that took place last night in the heavyweight division between Kubrat Pulev and Dereck Chisora. This was of course a rematch of a fight that took place in 2016 where Kubrat Pulev basically gave Chisora a boxing lesson and won by a split decision. That was a long time ago now, man, that doesn't even feel that long ago, but I think that fight was something like 6 years ago, but I digress. So yeah, they had a rematch last night. Going into the fight, any of you guys that have been following my channel will know pretty much how I saw it. And when I saw the fight, it went pretty much exactly as I expected it to go. I wasn't surprised by the fight at all. I said from day one Kubrat Pulev would more than likely win the fight, that the fight would go the distance, and Pulev would just completely school and outbox Dereck Chisora and win pretty clearly. And that was what happened. Unfortunately, though, he didn't get the decision. And so yeah, it is what it is, man. I mean, like I said, the fight went exactly as I thought it would go. Pulev was firmly in control of the fight the whole way through, I thought. Just based on how I score fights, and I score fights on clean, effective punching. And when I say clean, effective punching, I'm talking about legal punches, punches that are actually thrown legally, using the actual Queensberry rules of boxing. And from what I could see in there, it was a pretty clear, pretty comfortable win for Kubrat Pulev. But again, when you're fighting an A-side in his backyard, this is just what happens in boxing, alright? This is what promoters pay for home advantage for, right? This is why promoters like Eddie Hearn, like whoever, are willing to put up so much money to get their guy home advantage, to have some sort of sway over the officials. Okay, when you're fighting, especially in a place like the UK, on a network like DAZN, where you've just got this massive fraternity who seem to come together. I mean, the commentary for the fight, what else can I say about the commentary for the fight that hasn't already been said, man? I mean, you had David Haye, who is Dereck Chisora's personal friend and former manager. Okay, so somebody who, in the past, has been financially invested in Dereck Chisora, somebody who has been part of Dereck Chisora's entourage, right, who also fought Dereck Chisora, so used to be his rival, okay, a guy that's bonded with Dereck Chisora over the years, a guy who has fraternized with him. You've got him doing the commentary, right? Him giving, I think, nearly every round to Dereck Chisora or something ridiculous like that. You also had Tony Bellew, again, Dereck Chisora's personal friend, former sparring partner, and sycophant. Okay, a guy who has been ringside at many Dereck Chisora fights, screaming instructions to him. You had him doing the official scoring for DAZN. I mean, you couldn't make this up, man. And even he had the fight close. I think Tony Bellew had Chisora winning by like a round, or maybe a couple of rounds, or something like that. The only member of the commentary team who seemed to have any sense, who seemed to know what he was talking about, or showed any integrity whatsoever, was Barry Jones. Now, Barry Jones, I'm not a big fan of Barry Jones, but he's a better commentator than the vast majority of British commentators, in my opinion, and he was the only one in there who was actually calling the fight as he saw it. I'm not saying that he wasn't like rooting for Chisora, he clearly was, but he had to check the other guys, like while David Haye was saying, oh, this is a great performance by Chisora, he's dominating, this, that, and the other, Barry Jones was interjecting and saying, no, come on, guys, like we need to be a little bit more fair here, okay? Pulev's the guy doing most of the work from the outside, he's the guy landing the more clean punches, he's the classy boxer of the two, and I think he's won the fight. Like Barry Jones kept interjecting during the commentary and trying to remind the other commentators that, look, we can't ignore Pulev's work, okay? I know that we're rooting for Chisora, I know we are Team Chisora, basically. He might as well have said that, I'm obviously paraphrasing, but we can't ignore what Pulev is doing. We can't ignore the long-range work, the jab, the right hand, the uppercut. Pulev was landing shots all night on Chisora. It was a situation where, going into the fight, I was thinking to myself, all Pulev has to do is do what he did in the first fight, but just because he's away from home, be a bit more eye-catching with his work, if you know what I mean. You know, finish every combination with a right hand or a left hook or something and just stamp his authority on the fight. But in the fight, I felt there was moments where Pulev allowed Chisora to get inside on him. A lot of clinching in this fight, by the way, from both men, which I really didn't like. I thought it was a very ugly, poor fight to watch. I mean, the commentators were saying it was a war and it was a great, like, back and forth brawl. And no, it wasn't. This was a very ugly fight. It was two old shot fighters in there that just looked a shadow of their former selves, in my opinion. But the gulf in boxing ability and the gulf in talent and class was the same as the first fight, okay? It was clearly Pulev who was the better boxer, who was winning the vast majority of the rounds. But like I was saying, I felt there was moments in the fight where he allowed Chisora to stand on the inside with him a little bit too long. And while Chisora's sort of wailing away to the body, you know, throwing hooks and throwing slaps and hitting him round the back and stuff like that, yeah, maybe they're not always scoring blows. Maybe they're not always landing with the knuckle part of the glove or having much of an effect. But what they are doing, what punches like that and what moments like that in the fight are doing, is they're allowing the judges, who are obviously on Dereck Chisora's side. I mean, they're judges that are affiliated with Matchroom and the British Boxing Board of Control. And, of course, they're there to make sure that the home guy wins. Okay, this is just what happens with A sides fighting at home against B sides, okay? This was a classic example of that. When you stand on the inside against a guy like Chisora and you let him wail away to your body, even if you're winning the round, even if you're controlling the vast majority of the rounds, just those instances, those moments, those 10-15 seconds of him wailing away at your body is enough of an excuse for the commentators to say he's the effective aggressor, or for the judges to say, yeah, well, Chisora's the guy working inside. And, you know, they're going to use that as an excuse to give him the rounds. And I'm quite surprised that Kubrat Pulev didn't have the understanding of boxing politics to know, I can't allow this guy to wail away at my body on the inside. You know, I can't allow this guy to work while I'm not doing much in close. Because what Pulev was doing in there was he would clinch Chisora. But when I say he would clinch, I don't mean he would like tie him up skillfully and smother his work. Pulev would just put his hands over Chisora's head and sort of grab hold of him, but he would leave himself wide open to the body and he wouldn't work inside, at least in the early part of the fight. I know in the later part of the fight, Pulev actually did work a bit inside himself and he actually got the better of Chisora up close. You know, he looked like the stronger guy to me, but it's just that he was allowing Chisora to do things on the inside and throw hooks to the body and stuff, which were, again, it was allowing the commentators, it was allowing the judges to just give Chisora the benefit of the doubt, if you know what I mean. And that's what was going, you know, that was always going to give Chisora an edge fighting at home. You know, if you're fighting away from home in another guy's backyard, when you know that guy has the network, the judges, the commentators, everybody rooting for him, the crowd, probably the timekeeper, everybody, you just have to be a little bit more aware of the aesthetics of the fight, okay? Just outboxing him isn't enough. So, yes, it was disappointing from Pulev in that sense. I also noticed that, and I don't know if anybody else picked up on this, but there was a couple of moments late in the fight, I think particularly in the 8th round, where Pulev had Chisora badly hurt on the ropes and on the verge of going down, and he just stopped. He just let him recover. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, oh man, I don't get it, man. Kubrat Pulev, clearly he's not the sharpest tool in the box when it comes to understanding referees and judges and understanding boxing politics. You know, he's a guy who has kind of gotten through his career without really thinking about that sort of stuff. I mean, the first fight was in Germany, and both guys were promoted by the same promoter. It was the Sauerlands. And if you look at how the first fight went, the referee was very, very fair in the first fight. He wasn't taking no crap from either guy. But in this fight, you had Marcus McDonald, you know. Yeah, classic Marcus McDonald, you know, the guy that gave Jack Catterall a pat on the head after he hit Josh Taylor on the floor, you know. Most fighters would have gotten disqualified for that, but, Jack Catterall instead, he got a congratulations and a pat on the head. The same referee who was warning Josh Taylor for Jack Catterall's clinches. Jack Catterall would put Taylor in a headlock, and the referee would say to Taylor, "Don't do that. How dare you do that? How dare you allow him to headlock you?" And we saw that in this fight, like the fouling from Dereck Chisora. I'm sick of talking about it at this point. I've spoke about this in so many Dereck Chisora videos in the past about how this guy gets away with so much fouling that I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, at least not in British boxing. I mean, Pulev was doing his fair share of clinching, don't get me wrong. He especially early in the fight, he was clinching quite a bit. But Chisora was clinching just as much. And not only was Chisora clinching, but on the inside, Chisora was throwing numerous low blows. He was hitting with the palm of the glove all night. He was hitting with the forearms. He was shoving his head right into Pulev's chin, coming up with his head and intentionally headbutting him. He actually opened 3 cuts on Pulev's face. Like, Pulev's face was all cut up at the end of the fight. Every single one of those cuts was either caused by a headbutt or a forearm. Like, there was actually a moment in the fight where Chisora was on the ropes and he threw a big massive swing and it connected with the forearm. And Barry Jones actually mentioned it on the replay, and he compared it to, I think, what Roy Jones did to Calzaghe, when Roy Jones dropped Calzaghe in the first round, and that actually cut him too. Calzaghe had a cut on his nose after he got dropped with a shot that landed with the forearm or the wrist or whatever, and it was the same here. Pulev was cut by the forearm, and it was a shot that got obviously a big reaction from the crowd, and it was a round that Pulev clearly won, but just a shot like that does such visible damage was enough to get him the round fighting at home. So yeah, the commentary was very inconsistent all night. You had Barry Jones, he had Pulev winning the fight. He was the only guy actually watching what happened, whereas David Haye, who of course Chisora's personal friend, former manager, former rival, guy who's bonded with him over the years, had it a domination for Chisora. The official timekeeper, again, Chisora's personal friend Tony Bellew and former sparring partner, had the fight very close. This was a shit show from start to finish, man. Pulev won the fight very clearly. In the later rounds, Chisora was literally running. He was running for dear life. He was gassed, right? It looked as if he was going to collapse. He spent the vast majority of the last few rounds on the ropes, taking a beating, while Pulev was completely and utterly outworking, schooling him, outboxing him, and I mean, every now and then Chisora would just throw a slap that would either miss or it would just graze Pulev, and the crowd would go ballistic, and David Haye would start flipping orgasming on commentary. Yeah, this was not a good look for boxing, man, and I'll tell you right now, for British boxing, this is a terrible look, because a lot of fighters are going to look at that and they're going to think, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Dereck Chisora, really? A guy coming off 3 losses, a guy who's practically a high-level journeyman at this stage of his career. You're going to rob a guy against him? Really? Like, yeah, this was a really bad look for British boxing, man. It really was. And Chisora looked embarrassed at the end of the fight. When the 12th round ended, just look at the final seconds of the fight. Chisora's on the ropes at the end of the 12th round. He looked like Anthony Joshua did when he fought Usyk at the end of the fight. When the bell goes and he just looks relieved. He's gasping for air. He's leaning on the ropes, looking as if he's gonna collapse. Pulev just puts his hands in the air, walks around, salutes the crowd, happy, looks as if he's just had a walk in the park. Man, this was a disgrace. This was a terrible robbery. It really was, man. And I can only laugh at it, man. I went to bed literally just laughing. I found it funny last night. I really did. But I was too tired to really make a video, and it would have been quite incoherent. So yeah, this was funny. It was a good freak show, a good clown show, and again, it exposes just the absolute ridiculous, fraternity type behavior. The kind of herd mentality that we see from British boxing fans, man. I mean, do you know what's going to be really interesting? And I haven't really looked much on social media today because I've been out. It's going to be really interesting to see how the crowd reacts to this. It's going to be interesting to see, all the virtue signalers after the Josh Taylor-Jack Catterall fight. Where are those guys? Are those guys going to be outraged by this? Are we going to hear, we need to call the police. This is a disgrace to boxing. We are the new Germany. Are we going to hear that after this fight? Somehow I doubt it. Somehow I think that we're just going to sweep this one under the carpet and pretend it didn't exist. I think that's what's going to happen here. So, yeah, this was a disgraceful robbery. Again, I'm a little bit annoyed because, again, I predicted Pulev by decision, and that's exactly what should have happened. He won the fight clearly, and it wasn't even really that competitive, if I'm being honest. If you count actual scoring, effective blows that were thrown properly, if you know anything, anybody that I see saying Chisora won this fight has lost all credibility with me. I'm not even kidding. There is no way under any objective scoring criteria that you could give this fight to Dereck Chisora. I'm not even kidding. And, I can't wait to see how the virtue signaling, also charitable boxing crowd reacts to this one. I mean, where's the outrage about this one? Where's the people saying they want to call the police and want to have a federal investigation into boxing because this was ridiculous, man. It really was. But yeah, I've said all I needed to say, really. It was a relatively inconsequential fight. It was two old men who should have probably retired years ago. Kubrat Pulev, he did a good job in the fight in terms of actually winning the fight and pretty much dominating, but with how bad Dereck Chisora looked, with how shot Dereck Chisora looked in there, because let's be honest, guys, Dereck Chisora is shot to pieces, even more so than Pulev is. Pulev should have gotten him out of there. In that 8th round or the 9th round or whatever, it shouldn't have gone by that. He should have forced a stoppage. So, disappointing performance from him in that sense, because he had an easy target in front of him. And yeah, this was a shit show. It really was. So yeah, horrible robbery. Let me know what you guys think. I mean, if they put either one of these guys in with like a Joe Joyce, I mean, they'll get, or an AJ or whoever, they'll get demolished, man. They really will, because can you imagine what Usyk would have done to either of those guys that night? Man, it would have been a massacre. So yeah, let me know what you guys think anyway. Thanks for watching, and God bless.